Welcome, everyone. My name is Bonita Ford, and I am PAN's board coordinator. We're just so delighted to have you all here with us. A lot of faces that we recognize, and new names and new faces. So, thank you all for being with us this evening, and especially tickled to be doing this evening in collaboration with PAN Permaculture Association of the Northeast and PINA Permaculture Institute of North America. Just really, really happy to be doing this collaboration and having this space to connect both of our communities and beyond. I just wanted to say a quick hello here from where I am. This is what we call Perth, Ontario, which is unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. And just a warm welcome to everyone. Pan is based in what we call Massachusetts, and that is Mi'kmaq, Wampanoag, and um, territory. And for me, it's just as folks were arriving, I was inviting people to put into the chat whose territory you're on, and also your pronouns. And for me, these invitations are just a a small acknowledgement to I think for us at Pan, it's become increasingly important to in our journey towards uncolonization, decolonization. It's been really important to acknowledge the communities that have been marginalized, that have been erased, that continue to not have a full voice or a full place at the table. And so this is just a small way of acknowledging this. And so PAN's mission is to increase the resilience of the Northeast region by strengthening the regional permaculture network and increasing access to relevant education and resources. And this evening, as you are all aware, we are here to be just exploring our community network. So what exists in our community, ways to better connect individuals, groups, projects, how we as PAN, how we as PINA can better support these groups that are existing or budding groups. And so we're really, really looking forward to sharing with you a couple of resources that PAN and PINA have developed over the last couple of years, and then have space for all of you to be in conversation with one another, and also giving us feedback about how best we can be supporting our larger communities.
We'll be going over the Unlawnful Action Toolkit. So I will go ahead and drop a link in the chat right now for anyone who would like direct access to this document. And I'm also going to go ahead now and begin a screen share so that you all can follow along with me as I sort of speak through this. For starters, can everyone see my screen share? Is that looking okay? Perfect. So for starters, I'd like to give some context on the Unlawnful Action Toolkit, which was situated within the Unlawnful campaign. So the Unlawnful campaign was a major project of our organization, the Permaculture Association of the Northeast, that took place between 2022 and 2023 over the past couple of years. And it was really spearheaded by our past facilitating director, Rev Deli, who had a huge impact on our organization and continues to this day. And our goal with the Unlawnful campaign at a broad scale, for those of you who aren't familiar, was to begin to educate people on some of the history of lawns and some of the colonial cultural values that are inherent in our relationship with our lawns, and to try to help empower people in the Northeast region to change their relationship with their lawns, and specifically to use permaculture design strategies and social strategies as well in order to begin a movement in the Northeast region to reduce the amount of lawn space that we have and to increase the amount of lush, biodiverse food, medicine producing landscapes. So we'll go ahead and start scrolling through this toolkit. Um, we generated this to be a living document, which is to say that throughout the year that we were working on the project, there were a few different iterations of it. And at the time, we had set an intention to revisit the project in the future. Right now, this project is on the back burner for Pan, but with the right group of people, there's always the possibility that this could be revisited and continued to be worked on. And so I invite all of you to look at this document as though you could have a stake in it and take ownership in it and help to develop it. It's our goal with PAN is to increase the resilience of the Northeast region, and part of that is having access to the resource materials that we need, and education is part of that. And so this toolkit hopes to serve some of that function. Here we have a wonderful little welcome from our treasurer, which I won't make us read through, but I'll skip right in here to the table of contents next. Um, so we sort of imagined that this would be a document which would help people to transition from theory into action. And so the first half of the toolkit is geared towards some sort of broad level themes that we had in the Unlawnful campaign and outlining at a sort of wide scale why we're doing this and what our timelines looked like and why it matters and how it relates to permaculture as a regional and international movement. Um, the sort of bread and butter of the document is focused on this idea of hosting and planning an unlawnful project or a work day. And so part of the campaign's goals were to have an increase in on the ground events that were happening and a decrease in the amount of lawn space. And so this section really gets into some of the nitty gritty details of how you would go about hosting a work day. And it covers a really wide range of topics at a relatively basic level. This is not an in-depth textbook. It's not a real guide to the sort of nitty-gritty details, but it is a broad outline of what steps are involved in the process of facilitating this kind of a project. And that is, we have the designing an unlawful site section, which covers a sort of range of the basic steps in that process. We have a section on resourcing grant opportunities because that's a barrier for entry for many people doing community projects. And then we have a little bit of information on the more social permaculture landscape of how do you actually plan and facilitate a workday, which is something that we recognize that not everyone may be familiar with. After that sort of bread and butter middle section, we get into the end of the document, which was really geared towards other resources that we had around the campaign and other ways that people could get involved and sort of what are the next steps? What are the resources that we have available to us right now for moving projects like this forward? So that's sort of a broad outline. And then there's a few different sections in the toolkit that we could highlight. So maybe I'll pause here and just take maybe one or two questions if anyone has any burning questions that they have about this toolkit so far. You can feel free to raise your hand or just unmute and go ahead and ask. Great. Okay, then I'll just move
And
on.
Jack,
Oh,
so what I was going to suggest is it's Bonita. So
yeah, go ahead.
because our time is a bit limited, do you want to just kind of point out a couple of your favorite parts of the toolkit? Because I think you gave a great overview of the sections in there. And are there parts that you think that would be kind of that you're the most excited about, or that you think would be the most useful to people?
Absolutely. Thank you for that suggestion. Let me go
Hmm.
ahead and I'll point out, as I was saying, the sort of bread and butter section. So this first half of the document is all very broad level information about the campaign that we were running and the themes, as I had mentioned. Um, and then around page 14, this is 13, 14, this is when we get to the sort of bread and butter of the document. So this is a section that's kind of focused on what the design process might look like. And, you know, as people in the permaculture community, we do entire certificate courses around this question. So again, this is in no way supposed to be an exhaustive document, but there's a few different sort of broad level approaches that are outlined here. So we have some sort of like, what are the factors that you might want to consider in your site? And what are the different types of project that you might be interested in implementing? Is it something as broad scale as a food forest, or is it something much lower maintenance in terms of a sort of perennial garden? And we have a few different examples of all of those. So then we get into the nitty gritty of what you do about the grass, because this whole campaign was focused on unlawning. And so we have some info here on different strategies that you can use to deal with sod. And then let's see, the next section that I think really was one of the highlights from this is the grant opportunities are, this is a great, incredible section. This was written by our treasurer, Joe, who is really just has a wealth of knowledge on the grant funding process. But this is the next section that I really wanted to call attention to. This is the section, how to plan and run an unlawful workday. And this is a really excellent guide for people who might not have hosted a workday before, but want to do so. And it sort of outlines some of the steps that you might not think of right off the bat, and helps you kind of get into the detail level of what needs to happen in order for in order for an event to be run successfully. Um, and I noticed that I am at about the allotted time that we gave for this. So if you're interested in the toolkit, then it's available for free on our website. And I think that it is a resource that I would love to see utilized by people in the community more widely.
Awesome, Jack. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so again, this is just it's a resource that PAN has developed over the last couple of years, and really our hope is just to create an opportunity for more community collaboration, more community engagement, and that was one avenue. And I'd like to turn this over to Peter and Jesse from PINA to share about the mapping resource and about the PCX platform.
Okay. Well, it's good to see friends and new friends here on the call. My name is Peter Bain. I am in Western Lower Michigan on the traditional lands of the Odawa and Potawatomi. My colleague Jesse Tack is also on the call. He's the PINA Program Services Manager, and he's on the other side of the Michigan Peninsula near Lake Huron. And I'm the Executive Director. So I also note in the audience my good friend Adrian Hodgson, who helped to develop the resource we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. I'm delighted that he's here. Haven't seen him in a few months at least. So we've been talking about how to organize reducing waste at a local level. That's what the Unlawnful campaign is about. One of the most conspicuous forms of waste is lawns that don't produce any food that surround our houses and should be growing useful plant material. So PAN has taken the lead in developing this resource, and I'm delighted to see it. PINA has a continental mission. That is, we're intended to serve the permaculture community across North America and Hawaii. And so the resource that we're going to talk about shortly is meant to address or empower people to organize at a regional level, which is something that is happening here and there, but could happen more, especially if people had tools. So I want to share my screen and show a little bit of what we have here, if I may. You'll pardon the technical transition here. I'm not always facile at this. Come on. Yeah, there it is. All right. So this is to give credit where due. Adrian will recognize this. Perhaps some others of you have seen it. It is a glimpse of the regional map produced for permaculture in Ontario and largely written by Jane Hayes and Adrian and developed by a larger crew, all of whom are named in our document, but I won't present them right now. It's showing the activity of permaculture projects across the province. The province is very large. It's half again as big as Texas, but most of the population is concentrated in the small triangle to the southeast, in and around Toronto and just a bit north of it. And you can see here, this is an interactive map using the Kumu platform. So you're looking at a bunch of circles surrounding a recognizable geographic map. If you were at the site, you could click on one of the circles and it would zoom in on a description. Looks like we could do that. Here, no particular inclination of who, but Ben Caesar is in Kimberley, Ontario, and we can pull up a profile of the site that he's working on and developing and see some examples of his work. This is true here for the 36 sites that are represented, and there could be many more. This map could expand several-fold if there were enough people willing to present themselves. It took some time, and the resource that PINA has developed in cooperation with Garden Jane and Adrian and Bonita, who did some editing on the final project, among others, is meant to illustrate the process by which a map such as the one you're looking at came about, what it took to create it, and how one might go about thinking about designing such a regional organizational project. Inevitably, or let me just say, the sort of bottom line here is that mapping in the framework of this resource, and I'm going to switch by, let's see, I'm going to switch away from this and into the document itself, if I have it here. Oh, dear God. Tell me I'm not getting this. No. All right. Hold on. Here we go. That's it. Yeah, here we go. I'm not only in multiple windows on my laptop, I'm in multiple realities here in Michigan. So thank you for your indulgence. This is a glimpse at the hub mapping resource that we're introducing to you all here. And the key words are right in front of you: community building through mapping. This is what emerged out of the process with a group in Ontario whom PINA commissioned to develop this document. It's a living document. It's written in as a Google document. It'll become available shortly at our website, pina.in. And it describes the process by which one assembles the criteria for mapping, the team for mapping, the resources for mapping, and the aims, as any good permaculture design involves setting out aims initially. Mapping has to set out aims. What is it you want to achieve? And you can get to mapping in a number of different ways, and this document sets out questions you might want to ask. How to build community, what should lead you, what are the factors in design, what happens as you begin the process. There is an emergent aspect to designing through this resource collection, community building process. Not everything will be foreseen at the beginning. The document itself offers a case study of the Ontario map. It talks about technical solutions. I showed you an example hosted on the Kumu platform, the Ontario map, but one can map with Google, or there are many other opportunities. And I suppose I should say, we can imagine many potential uses for this kind of resource. One PINA has talked with Jane and Adrian about and have worked on conceptually is to develop a project for planting 1 million trees and monitoring those plantings and making them known to show an emergent process of reforestation and climate control. But there are many and obvious community building needs that can be met by using this resource. So, we've got a lot of nice, well-written language. This is carefully crafted. At this point, it's not a sophisticated document graphically. It has images. It talks about the mapping process, about how to make choices, determine the design factors that will shape the maps and the mapping process, and what might come out of all of that, yields, and how these in turn influence the community that began the process. So the questions that the guide poses are, if you're thinking about mapping, if you're thinking you have a regional community that needs to know itself better than it does, then how should you go about engaging with that community in order to draw out the information that will enliven it, that will enable people to do more powerful exchanges? One of the consequences of the several years of success or persistence with the Ontario map is that now business is emerging out of it. People are finding each other in order to make connections for design consultation or agricultural products or other services. Suddenly, this becomes something of a green map, like you might have to a well-designed city, but it can be on a much larger scale. You have to set out goals. You need to determine what your ethics are. How do you protect people's privacy or respect their boundaries as they begin to reveal intimate aspects of their landscapes and their livelihoods to others? What aspects of landscape, social, cultural, and physical, do you want to reveal? How can you assemble all this? What's your budget? What resources do you have? And things such as how the user might experience the map and engage with it. So we have kept it deliberately simple, but there are some quite appealing and interesting graphics here showing different kinds of maps to illustrate possibilities and suggest creative options. And then there's a discussion of what happens once you've developed the map and how do you maintain the map? Because the map's a living document, and the mapping itself, the mapping resource here, is also a living process. That is, we don't
Peter?
expect this is the last word. Yes.
Peter, it's Bonita. I'm just going to interrupt you for a moment. So you've got a hand up from Joshua, I believe, and also
Okay.
I'd like to give Jesse a couple of moments just to share about PCX as well too, and leave enough time for our
Yes, of
discussion
course.
groups.
Thank you.
Of course.
So your question, Josh.
How did you get it to actually get enough momentum in Ontario that it's not just another? I've signed up for so many of these maps over the years for various different things, not specifically a permaculture one, but every time it's like there's me and the other guy, and there's like 2 dots on the whole map, and then everybody forgets about it later on and goes on with their lives. So how did you actually keep momentum? Thanks.
Well, I don't want to put Adrian on the spot, but if he could speak to this, it might be more authentic than my trying to speculate and guess, because he was more intimately involved in the development of the map in Ontario, and he happens to be with us tonight. So are you willing to speak, Adrian? Is that something you feel you know a little bit about?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure. The Ontario permaculture community seemed pretty disparate and disconnected, and yet we were doing the math and seeing that there ought to be a lot of us out there, but why aren't we all talking to one another? And there's a regional conference called the Guelph Organics Conference, and it's near enough to Toronto, and Toronto's kind of centric to other parts of southwestern Ontario. And so Jane Hayes hosted a meetup there and said, hey, let's get to know one another. And with no intent to make a map at first, but just through that, some of the outcome was that from talking to one another, people did want more connection and ways to connect. And so the map actually came up as a way to engage with that need in the community. So it started from there. Jane's a good connector of community and had a lot of good rapport with a lot of people. And so, a bit of a old school telephone tree, sort of, everyone tell your friends, this is out here. And I think just a good swell of interest and enthusiasm for the project happened. And the following year at the Guelph Organics Conference, we were to present this project, or at least the beginnings of this project, and launch the map itself. So Stephen Torrance was the guy who did all the programming and is still managing this, and he's totally a genius. So he knew of this Kumu platform and was able to utilize it for our needs. And so at that conference, using that momentum, we got a big push. We had probably hundreds of submissions, or maybe well over 100 for sure. And we've been growing pins on the map ever since. And that's the story in short, really.
Thank you, Adrian. That's really helpful to hear. And it's a good segue to turning to Jesse to talk about another way that people can gather resources and connections. And this is one that's being promoted by Permaculture Institute North America, PINA, and our fiscal agent, Associated Regenerative Culture. It's called the PCX, or the Peace Permaculture Crossing. And it's meant as a virtual social network for permaculture interests. So can enable people to meet each other.
Great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Bonita, and everybody else from PAN for inviting us. This is really excellent to be able to connect and collaborate and network a little bit with everybody here. I'm sort of new to PINA. I was hired in May of last year, along with two other staff members. And since then, we've put together, I think, a fair number of resources that is totally worth sharing. And so this is great to share resources together and just to make each other aware of what's out there. And then, of course, what might be needed in the not too distant future. Please let us know as we get going. And Peter, if you want to stop screen sharing, and then I'll take over.
I will do that so you can.
Thank you. And Bonita, is there a time that you want me to land on? 8:45, 8:40?
That would be, 8 something in there would be fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. So this is the PCX. Some of you are on this, I think, at this point. This is sort of like a Facebook mimic, except minus all the, corporate money and the spine tech. This is built off of Mighty Networks. I'm sure many of you know that platform. And it's free to join. It's free to have communities on there. If you teach PDCs, it's free to host your cohorts there. Many people, including myself, when I took my PDC, we would have a private group for the class to stay in touch after the PDC, but that was usually on Facebook. So we're hoping that this becomes a magnetic attractor for PDC teachers and cohorts of advanced trainings and things like hubs and whatnot to sort of have a central location where it's all permaculture and related fields sort of all the time. And so I'll send you an invite in the chat here when I get a second after I'm done speaking. But just to give you an orientation here, there is the home site where like the feed and whatnot exist. And you are welcome to, as you join, host your events, especially teaching opportunities or classroom opportunities or an unlawful event. It would be really great to just continually populate this event sort of calendar here. And so we have PINA is doing, since I've been hired, we're doing more interviews. In fact, I got to speak with Adrian today about a living design process. So that was great, and great to see you here, Adrian. But generally speaking, this is a great place to come and just see what's happening. Now, obviously, the more people we get on here, the more this will be useful and sort of localized. Currently, there's events, as you can see, but they might not be in Ontario or the Northeast, etc. So come on and join us over here. We have a couple walkthrough courses, just how to understand the PCX. But kind of importantly, we've been working on this now what space. PINA has really sort of been a little bit laser focused on that. Okay, you graduated, you had your PDC, now what? There seems to be that chasm of like post PDC blues, I think Peter called it once, of like, oh, I was so turned on by the PDC experience and all that knowledge, and especially the immersion process of the 2 weeks. But then what? Like, where do I go from there? So we're hosting a free Zoom call for all people to hop on. And this is really a resource and networking opportunity is the way we're looking at it. So you're welcome to join that at any point. You can drop in, drop out. You can say, hey, I'm hosting a PDC next month, or hey, I would really love to have some woofers on my farm, and like just put the word out, and we'll help spread that word and see if we can start churning the networking a little bit more. So requests for courses, requests for offers, who's hiring, requests for needs. We may end up doing breakout rooms depending. I mean, we just started this, so it's not been too popular yet, but as it gets bigger, we'll do breakout rooms by region. So we're hopefully, again, just like giving opportunities for more networking and local connections. So come join that. If you teach permaculture at all, whether it's like introduction courses in your community or PDCs or advanced trainings, we've created this permaculture resources space, which is free. And this space is, the idea is, I bet many of you have had teachers who you've seen their thumb drives and they have all the pictures. They have like millions of pictures they've been collecting, since they've been teaching permaculture in the 90s or whatnot. And this is true of one of my teachers, Keith Johnson, Peter's partner. He just had all these files, and he's like, hey, he's probably here. He's probably going to pop in. I was like, he offered at the PDC. He's like, if you have a thumb drive.
You want to do a cameo? They're talking about you.
Oh, yes. So anyhow, we borrowed, Keith was generous to share a lot of his photos. So you're welcome to come
photos.
And use these. Hey, Keith.
There's the photographer.
Look at these. This is my favorite file of yours, Keith, the animal behaviors. It's really funny. And sometimes lewd.
You hadn't seen these either. I'm sure there's lots of stuff you haven't seen.
So anyhow,
that's worth a cost of admission. Thank you.
That's right. Yeah, we have some free resources. The Permaculture pamphlet series of Bill Mollison's PDC in the 80s, I believe, is here. Some some movies like Global Gardener and whatnot are nested within this, just so everybody gets a opportunity to see them. And if you have free lead magnets, we're very open to promoting your business, promoting what it is that you do. Even that's totally okay with us. If you want to get people on your email list, that's the whole point of this space, is to network and bring people to what they need when they need it. So check that out. And then just recognizing that there is a space for hubs and bioregions, which we're still building and we're still getting energy behind, but we hope to make this more lively in the coming years. There's discussion zones for specific things, like maybe Adrian and I will start a living design process discussion zone. So where lots of conversations happen just about that topic. Courses and cohorts, including paid courses. So if you want to host how to make money with mushrooms or how to teach permaculture for profit, reach out to us at the support space here on PCX, and we'd be happy to host your course here. And then there's working space. The diploma program is largely existing now on the PCX in terms of we want to bring candidates into the diploma program here so that all of their resources are here and they're connected to a larger community. And I think that's it for now. I'll just point out one other resource, and I'll drop this in the chat. The post PDC guidebook, we created this recently. It has a link to the PCX, as we were just talking about, and then some other things that might be worth just knowing about. For instance, we have a new design contest coming up pretty soon. So, you know, enter a design that you want to get partially funded, $5,000 grand prize for the winner, that sort of thing. All sorts of great stuff happening. Reach out to me on the PCX anytime if you want to know any more. And with that, thank you again, Bonita. I appreciate it. And thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you inside the chat.
I enjoyed our conversations in our breakout room. And I'm curious if there's maybe 2-3 people that have anything kind of present with it, something kind of felt optimistic or kind of a positive next step that could come of this collaboration network. I'm not sure if anyone's feeling compelled or called, they can raise hand or just take yourself off mute. We'll do this nice and formal.
Well, I'll be happy to jump in. I was absolutely astonished and amazed and excited by the quality of the materials that I saw presented and by the enthusiasm and intellect of the people that delivered it. This is, I'm telling you, you guys have got an amazing amount of material at your disposal. This is going to be very much fun to participate. I just wanted to give you guys an emotional readout on what I saw go by.
Wow. Received. Thank you, Tom. We've lots of hours went into each of those resources and conceiving of this event, and we look forward to many more of these, and probably not the same exact format. So, or maybe we'll see. Fill out the survey, and we'll know how we can meander this in the future. So thank you, Tom. Really appreciate it. Anyone else have anything that felt inspiring or an exciting next step that you might explore?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in and just share something that stood out in our breakout room was hearing Jess share about Myco Evolve, and they're doing some really incredible work up in Lake Champlain, doing myco phytoremediation. And I'm part of permatours.org with Meg Allen, who's here on the call, and we travel around doing permaculture projects. It's Permaculture Tour. And yeah, we just got to support Jess and learn all about mycorrhizae and growing your own mycorrhizae, and that was really inspiring. I wanted to share that.
Yeah, I was kind of going through the names, and that was fun that I picked Jess and Scott to be in the same room, and you guys just saw each other a couple days ago. So there is definitely that feeling of we're kind of on an island, but connected, touching, hang out with on each other's islands periodically, maybe more. That's awesome. Thanks, Jess, for putting the link in the chat. And if anyone haven't even taken a look at see if there are any of the surveys yet, but if anybody has, right, absolutely, Bonita, if there is any other links or events that people want to share here, what we can do is certainly have a recap email for anybody for those that registered, and lots of great resources. Looking forward to sharing the bounty, Earth Care, People Care, Fair Share, and see how we can continue and evolve this movement. before we get into final wrap-ups, any just want to make sure I give space for anyone else that has anything that you'd like to share.
I actually have a question for the group, just because because we're here together, and so in our small breakout group, I just got that, like, the energy was very enthusiastic, and my sense was that we could have easily spent another like 15-20 minutes talking. We were just getting through introductions, and we didn't really get to start chewing on the questions. And so my high level question to everyone here, and if you just feel free to like put in the chat or take yourself off mute and share. I guess what I'm wondering is, like, on the one hand, from the events that PAN has hosted in the last couple of years, it really seems that people are wanting more kind of like unstructured opportunities to come together in this space and to network and to meet one another, to share projects, to share resources, to just, like, just really kind of free form networking. Because I think we actually easily could have spent much more time in our breakout groups just doing that together. And on the other hand, when PAN hosts meetings or sessions that are kind of more free form, very few people show up. And so I'm kind of feeling torn, like, in terms of, like, as a facilitator, as an event planner. Tonight, we actually planned it with 2 presentations, and obviously both presentations, we could have given each presentation like half an hour. Like, we were, kind of squeezed to get them into a smaller amount of time. And we were also squeezing the breakout group discussions into a small amount of time. So I'm just wondering if anyone has any feedback for us on, like, it seems like people would love to have more time to discuss and network, but if we only have discussion and network time, it seems like we only have 1 or 2 people show. So, like, I'm just really curious about what would serve you well, what would best serve the community, what would be helpful for you, your community, your project.
Is it okay if I chat? I would say that lots of times just like having one talk or 2 like we did now, and then having like open discussion, I feel like that's a good flow because it gives a topic if you want to talk about it, but then, it's just open after that. So I know for me, like, I appreciate that. But yeah.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah, I'll add, I thought the presentations were just right. I mean, even though both topics could go a lot deeper, it's nice to just have a quick intro to them and then share links to resources. And then if you're interested, you can go deeper. And I love the breakout idea. Just one person was nice, but I like 3 to 4 person groups and longer to do it, I think is more ideal.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate that. Yes, and Jess has said in the chat, in-person gatherings and bioregional gatherings, theme-based. Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's been a lot of people who have been saying that. And I think that's part of what we were hoping for this evening, is kind of to start planting the seed to support more local groups in self-organizing those things. So I don't know, Jesse, I don't know if you want to say anything about PINA's vision about how you as an organization might support other groups. I know for PAN, we are clear that we don't have the capacity to be the ones organizing those bioregional gatherings, but we really, really want to support other groups in doing so. And so the Unlawnful Toolkit was one small way that we were trying to kind of take our experience and our knowledge and support other groups in having permablitzes and having work days and planning projects together. Jesse, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about PINA's vision for supporting more localized groups and projects in events.
Yes, I would say that's still very nascent, if that's the word, under development. One of the things that we now, with the addition of the new staff, are thinking and planning to do is continental convergences every 3 years. And I think, Bonita, maybe we've even been in touch about, like, we should I don't know. Is that true, Benita? Were we kind of emailing about like we should like do it together? Like Pan should be like helping, or PINA can help Pan, or we can like form these like loose affiliations. But then PINA has the staff to sort of like implement the vision and do some of the just sort of like administrative work. So I think that would be one aspect to it. And the other thing that I think I'm excited that PINA is able to hold this like sort of central place where we actually have staff who's working on development, aka getting grant money, aka getting wealthy donors to support this type of work. And I think the idea is that if and when we start to get to those levels of finances that we can support and help co-create bioregional convergences, that is our vision. That is something we want to do. I don't know how many years off into the future that may be, but the convergences, I know we're planning to do one next year, a continental convergence. So we'll see where that all goes. But, I think PINA is in a great position to be really helpful, but we need our partners, and we need to have bioregional, institutes that have some capacity too. I recognize there's a lot of burnout there and a lot of volunteer labor that goes into that.
Thanks, Jesse. Seth, as we're getting towards the end of the meeting, was there a survey that you wanted to share? And I see Adrian. Yeah, Adrian, actually, maybe go ahead, Adrian, first.
I was just gonna add a thought that just came up that I forgot about, but it's something I thought about before. Is just to have conversations that go outside of the permaculture kind of container, to host conversations, say, between people with different interests, and just see what comes of that. So I think it's important to have safe or contained space for subculture, right? But it also is important to mix subculture a little bit too, and we can learn from one another. So yeah, just a thought.
Thanks, Adrian. Would anyone else like to share final reflection or a question before we get into wrapping up? Seth has shared the survey in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, Tom, I think you noted this in the chat. Each of these components, whether it's the breakout room, the resource sharing, this could be a full 90-minute, half-day, multi-day. I've done some really, I've participated in some epic Zoom conferences that I felt more energized after being on Zoom for 8 hours than I have being in person, getting PowerPointed to death. I mean, it's music, it's active, like there's so much that we can do remotely, but then getting our hands in the soil with each other, breaking bread, really excited to kind of find that right dichotomy balance to help kind of locate, find each other, and then also transition offline. So we're not just feeding the Zuckerberg machine, but rather helping each other. Earth Care People Care Fair Share. Thank you for, if there's any other links that people like to share, your organization or initiative, this is just fun to learn more about, like I said, different groups, keywords. Top bar beehives is my current fun thing to build over the winter. So I'm connecting with super cool people that do top bar, and they also have a permaculture mindset. It's kind of cool. They're like, yeah, what's permaculture? I'm like, cool, teach me about top bar and I'll share what I know about permaculture. So lots of fun. I've yet to go to a permaculture event. I'm like, wow, they're all just mean people. So you got my stretch is continuing with another fun group of people. And my kids finally went to bed, so I haven't heard any screams. Anyways, I know it's getting late, and so appreciate, it's been fun. All of you there have stayed with us the whole time, and I know we had a few people that had to hop early, and I look forward to seeing people on PCX, future PAN Collaboration Network, unlawning, rocket stoving. Well, if I was a little more organized, I would have some really fun music to play, but I've botched my Spotify in the past, so.
Put the survey link in the chat again. Thank
Survey
you.
links in
Would
the
really
chat.
appreciate people's
Cool.
feedback
Well,
and
I'll hang out for a
thoughts.
little bit. Kids are asleep, so if anybody does have any extra time to chat or any additional follow-up, but no expectations. It's getting late, definitely looking at people's backgrounds, getting dark. So
True enough.
be mindful.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much again to Jesse and Peter from PINA for being with us. And thank you, Jack and Seth, for helping to make this possible. And thank you all for being here. And
Thank you, Bonita. Thanks,
course.
Jack. Thanks, Seth. Great to meet you. Great to see everybody. We'll be in touch.